Ladies and gentlemen, Piers Morgan just got exposed on his own show brilliantly by Benny Johnson. He is a two-faced person, and this clip shows exactly why that is and how two-faced Piers Morgan seems to be.
And I want to bring you in on another part of all this. Again, the D's, deportations, but a slight variant, which is student deportations. We've seen this big row, obviously, recently about the Columbia University student who was alleged to be pro-Hamas. It seems to be a bit of a foggy picture as to whether he was or not. But this principle of deporting students for their political allegiances or views, where do you sit on that? Bernie Sanders says this is not democracy. You can't exile political dissidents, not in the United States.
Well, I mean, our government will certainly try to do that as long as the government of Israel demands it. And our government, whether you're talking about Democrats or Republicans, is completely controlled by the Israeli government, and they're going to do the Israeli government's bidding. That's what this is really about. That's all it is. So protesters who are legal residents, permanent residents who have green cards, will be deported simply for exercising their freedom of speech and criticizing how the Israeli government is prosecuting this war in Gaza, slaughtering tens of thousands of innocent women, children, elderly people, civilians. They're going to continue the slaughter. They don't want any backlash from anyone in the United States about it, including American citizens, including permanent residents. And remember, Miriam Adelson and the Adelson family overall gave Donald Trump hundreds of millions of dollars to not do what's right for the United States, but to do what's right for Israel. So Donald Trump is going to do that. He's transactional. Money talks for him, and he doesn't care. He'll go ahead and revoke green cards and deport valedictorians, students who have been in this country since they were 7 years old, were valedictorians in high school. But God forbid they ever ding or criticize the Israeli government, because that's when they'll become a target.
What if they actively support? What if they actively support Hamas?
Look, I despise Hamas, and it disgusts me that anyone would say anything positive about Hamas. But our freedom of speech indicates that we are allowed to even be supportive of the KKK, be supportive of Nazis, be supportive of terrorist
But that
groups.
applies to American naturalized citizens. If you've come in on a green card, right? If you say on your green card you support a organization that is a prescribed terror group in the United States, you don't get your green card. That is the argument Marco Rubio made. I thought it was quite a good one. I mean, I haven't got a green card, but I have a visa. And they're very stringent about all these kind of things, right? If you aligned yourself with a terror group,
you know that.
If you aligned yourself with a terror group, you wouldn't get in. So why should you stay in?
Well,
is my point.
visa and a green card is hold on, Piers, hold on. Visa and green card is different, as you know.
Of course, yeah.
Someone who's a permanent legal resident is, it's like one tiny step lower than a naturalized citizen. And the point is, whatever allegation the Trump administration is making against these green card holders, it needs to be adjudicated by a judge. Again, it goes back to the issue of due process. If you guys are comfortable with an executive branch official, simply one person unilaterally deciding without any due process that someone has done something wrong and now their green card should be revoked, I think that's setting a really, really bad and dangerous precedent. Again, that concentrates too much power among a very small group of people, and I think people deserve due process. Have a judge weigh in and determine whether or not this person is actually a threat to the United States or our national security, and then make that decision. But
Benny,
for some reason, they don't want to do that.
All right, Benny, he's kicking out student protesters for having views he doesn't like. He wants CNN to be banned from the airwaves and so on. A lot of people saying, hang on, aren't you supposed to be Mr. Free Speech, Mr. President? Aren't you and Elon Musk the standard bearers of free speech? What happened to free speech? Is it only free speech when you like what you're hearing?
I love the way that you ask these questions, Piers. You're like my schizophrenic aunt. It's like Thanksgiving dinner after a box of wine. Because in 1 second, you're like, Anna, this scum should have been deported as a member of Hamas. This scum said that they needed to be out. And he said the end of Western civilization is what they're here for, which, in fact, they did. And then in the same question, you're like, Trump's just deporting students because he doesn't like what they say.
Right.
You can't have it both ways, Piers.
Well,
Is
actually,
this guy a supporter of a terrorist group or not?
But on this issue of free speech, has the Trump administration been consistent?
Brilliantly called out. You know, as an interviewer, you shouldn't be so back and forth. You can take a more mutual position, but when you present the facts as A, and then you ask a question to and present it as, oh, he's a Hamas supporter, he called for the end of the West, shouldn't he be gone? And then 5 seconds later you're saying, well, he was just trying to lead a good life here and he was just kicked out by Donald Trump. Like, those are completely different positions and they're not reconcilable. You can't say that they're both true at the same time. So you can say, like, what's your position on this, instead of, hard hitting the pro-Israel side, hard hitting the pro-Palestine side, and making everybody hate you. I mean, it's exactly like you said. He's in Hamas. And then like 5 seconds later, well, Trump is just doing whatever he wants. He's a dictator.
We might find this student, Mahmoud Khalil's views loathsome. There's no apparent, so far, hard evidence he has been pro-Hamas, and he disputes that. If it turns out he's not been actively pro-Hamas, and we can't find actual words coming out of his mouth to show that, is it right that a green card holder in America should be thrown out of the country?
Listen, I'm not an expert on this case. I'm not a green card expert either. So I'm just going to go very quickly to the simple example of you're a guest here, all right? And if you go to another country, and Americans go and travel abroad to tons of countries, every country on earth right now has an American traveling abroad. If that American decided to support a terrorist faction or behave in a way that was criminal and illegal, right, which is what was happening when you were barricading and burning down and harming students and threatening students, then expect to be kicked out of that country. It's pretty logical, right? And I don't think that free speech has anything to do with it. And as you stated, free speech applies to American citizens, either native born or naturalized. That the Constitution applies to us, not to guests here. So it's the same thing as the criminal alien argument.
All right.
You don't get the same rights if you are a guest here, especially if you came here illegally. Right?
100%. Benny Johnson is right there. We have no obligation to have these Hamas supporters in our country. And if he would have said that he was a Hamas supporter on his visa, I support Hamas. I am going to advocate for Hamas when I get to the United States. Do you really think that we would have let him in? That's basically how the easiest way to put it. We don't want those types of people in our country. If he would have said that he was going to advocate for Hamas, create chaos on American campuses, he would have been kicked out. And again, this hypocrisy of Piers Morgan creating two different realities and presenting them as factual evidence on both guests, and then trying to pretend like he's being. If you're being in the middle, you don't need to flip back and forth. You can just be in the middle. You can just take the normal position. You don't have to take the extreme and then the other extreme. I just wanted to also show you there's a Piers Morgan starter kit. This is a Piers Morgan starter kit. He's having a moral quandary. This is what he looks over every time before he does a debate. Having a moral quandary. Do you condemn, insert anything? Do they have a right to defend themselves? If so, regarding the latter, what is a proportionate response to insert anything? Say, hang on, to interrupt your guess. I recently spoke with President Trump. My brother served in the British Army. The specifically the do you condemn and a proportionate response is so is his number one, is his two number one things. Do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn October 7th? Do you condemn the Israeli settlements? Do you, he just goes on and on and on. Listen, Piers Morgan has one single motivation in all of this, and that is to make as much money as possible by pitting two sides against each other, and then like he'll get on like a full-on Nazi and then like some Jew, and they'll go after each other, and the whole debate won't be a debate, just a screaming match, and he'll be like, I'm surprised that this really just like everybody's screaming at each other. I tried to have a normal debate here. Like, no, like we all know that you brought these people on, the most polar opposite people, the people that would have the biggest problems with each other, in order to garner as many views as possible. And then when he's confronted with it, oh, why are you having Candace Owens on? Why are you having Ye on? Why are you having all these obvious anti-Semites on? He's like, well, they got views, so obviously the people want to see it. He's been platforming some of the worst Jew haters and Israel haters and anti-Semites out there, like Myron Gaines, who said that H word was right in the Nazis were basically right. That's what Myron Gaines has said in the past, and he had him on recently. So Piers Morgan is an absolute fraud. His modus operandi, his number one thing that he's trying to do is make as much money as possible with zero consideration for being, having on guests that are actually normal. And he has no problem platforming the worst voices in our society as long as he can profit from it. That's just all I have to say about him. For more, subscribe to the channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. Also, check out our channel memberships and subscribe there as well to get more exclusive content. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.